In the quiet of the night, a rebellion is beginning to bloom within the decaying system of Grand Vista Cinema. Clara Bennett, determined to defend the values she inherited from her father, donned a disguise. As a cleaning lady, she began uncovering the secrets hidden in the dark corridors. Witnessed the desperate cries of the employees, the hopeful story of a family, and the deep traces of injustice. This summer, there's a revolution hidden behind every curtain. Here, every story begins with a person. Witness this story rewritten by Clara's courage. Because sometimes the greatest revolutions sprout behind the darkest curtains. Clara Bennett, the respected general manager of Starglow Cinemas, had been watching with deep concern as staff turnover increased and customer satisfaction sharply dropped in recent months. To protect the valuable legacy she had inherited from her father, she decided to take a bold and unusual step. She was going to disguise herself as a cleaning lady to see firsthand what was happening behind the scenes at Grand Vista Cinema. Meticulously preparing, Clara carefully tied her hair into a bun, put on her simple yet impressive glasses, and donned a uniform that made her feel just like any other employee. Now, as someone unrecognized and known as Linda, she would blend into the streets. Under this new identity, she would move step by step through the dusty corridors of the cinema hall and the mysterious corners of the backstage to uncover the secrets behind the truth. On the first night, while wiping the cracked floor in the lobby, Clara, now in her Linda persona, unwittingly overheard two young employees whispering to each other. The determined voice of a woman broke the silence of the night. "Jake, we can't take that risk," the woman insisted, showing off the conspicuous Emma emblazoned on her uniform. Jake, his hands trembling as he continued wiping, almost whispered back, "Do we have any choice?" His words clearly carried the pressure and despair brought on by the mounting chemotherapy bills. "Derek is already exploiting us. We have no choice but to use the loopholes in this system," he said, his voice mixing desperation with resolve. In that moment, under the lobby's dim lights, the unusual conversation between the two young employees seemed to whisper hints of the complex and dangerous realities unfolding behind the scenes at the cinema. Clara's heart started pounding like a fast drum. The branch manager, Derek, who was lauded as an exemplary leader in the reports, was now, the very next day, making justice feel like a terror right before Clara's eyes. With broad anger, he leaned toward a young employee and shouted, "There's no overtime pay this week." His voice cut through the silence of the cinema hall. "Either you accept it or you're fired." Those words carried a cold, ruthless threat. Torn by this inner conflict, Clara lightly tapped her phone in her pocket. She remembered that the reports showed overtime payments as being perfectly normal. That so-called regularity was actually a mask hiding a dark truth. All those extra payments were being siphoned off from the company's accounts straight into Derek's pocket. This moment was a wake-up call for Clara. She wouldn't let the legacy and values inherited from her father be overshadowed any longer by false praise and unfair management. It was time to go after justice. For several days, Clara learned the painful truths of the lives of young people like Jake and Emma, who were fighting ignorance in order to build a hopeful future for their mothers. Jake and Emma were saving every bit of their earnings to afford experimental drugs that their insurance wouldn't cover for their mother's cancer treatments. It was a struggle where hope and desperation intertwined. Meanwhile, the injustices that Derek was coldly committing came to light. He was systematically depriving them of their basic rights by paying them less than minimum wage and adding off the books overtime. One night, while Clara was rummaging through the office trash in silence, she came across documents that revealed a devastating truth. Among meticulously hidden files, Derek's fake accounting records clearly exposed tax evasion, wage theft, and violations that endangered the employee's safety by locking fire exits. Each document was a silent yet ruthless witness to the deep corruption and injustice at the heart of the system. This discovery ignited Clara's sense of justice. Beyond safeguarding the values inherited from her father, she realized that it was time to raise her voice and put an end to this injustice. She would no longer back down in her quest to expose the rotten system lurking in the dark corridors of Starglow Cinemas and defend the rights of the victims. At the peak of the plan, while Jake and Emma were exploiting a loophole in the ticket sales system to transfer money, Clara's heart felt like it was about to burst out of her chest. Everything was going exactly as planned, until that critical moment when Clara sprang into action. Calling the police might have been an easy way out, but she could never allow the flame of justice inside her to be extinguished. Gathering herself and stepping forward with determined strides, she broke the silence of the night. In that very moment, as the young people gathered around the table stared at her in astonishment, Clara clearly revealed her identity. "I am Clara Bennett. And tonight, everything changes." Those words resonated against both the corrupt system and the suppressed hopes. In that moment, deep within the dark corridors of the cinema world, it was a sign that justice was about to be reborn. The old accepted rules would soon be replaced by a new order, woven with truth and courage. The next morning, as Clara stepped into the office, she saw a mixture of fear and astonishment on Derek's face. On his desk lay his own dismissal notice, a symbol that his days in management were over. At that moment, Clara had already calmly handed over all the evidence she had gathered to the public prosecutor. Justice was about to be served. Then she turned to Jake and Emma, whose eyes still shone with hope. With heartfelt determination she spoke loudly, "We're going to help your mother. The company's new health fund will cover the necessary treatment. But I have one condition for you: help me fix this system." Those words were not just a promise, they were a symbol of Clara's resolve to restore justice and dismantle the corrupt system. In Jake and Emma's eyes, both gratitude and a spark of new hope were shining. What had started as a personal battle had now turned into a collective resistance against the rotten foundations of the system. 6 months later, the lobby of Grand Vista was filled with joy. Laughter echoed from every corner, heralding a new hope in defiance of the dark days of the past. Thanks to his dedicated efforts and leadership qualities, Jake had been promoted to training coordinator, now a guide to the employees and an inspiration who brought out their potential. Emma, on the other hand, continued to be a beacon of hope for sick children with her vibrant energy. By organizing free movie screenings, she left a big smile on every little heart after each session. Clara proudly introduced the company's new face. Transparent wage practices protected the employees' rights, a psychological support hotline was available during tough times, and an emergency fund provided security against unforeseen troubles. These new policies transformed Grand Vista from just a cinema into a platform that uplifted the quality of life for both the community and its workers. The new sign hanging on the lobby wall perfectly captured the spirit of this transformation. "Here, every story begins with a person." This simple yet profoundly meaningful phrase symbolized Grand Vista's people-centered philosophy at its core. With every step, every screening, and every smile, hope, solidarity, and love in someone's life were being rewritten. Grand Vista was no longer just about movies, it had become a stage for life where every story and every individual found value and rebirth. That night, Clara didn't just change the fate of a company, she also rekindled hope, mended broken dreams, and breathed new life into a family. In that moment, she had become a symbol of the resistance and belief that was sprouting behind the dark curtain. Because sometimes, the greatest revolutions begin to bud behind the darkest veils. Even in the most desperate times, a glimmer can reignite hopes for the future. Clara's step was not only a stand against corruption, it was also a herald of a fresh start woven with love.